in the previous video, we looked at the importance of the immune system. So now you know that you have the barrier as a skin, you have the innate immunity and adaptive immunity. You know that white blood cells are extremely important and they need some building blocks to perform in the optimal way. So sometimes when you have a nutritional deficiency, you are missing these building blocks, the immune system can overreact or underreact. So what do we need? We need all these building blocks, and we are going to look at them in details. So the first one is vitamin A. So that is a fat-soluble vitamin. It cannot travel in the bloodstream because fat doesn't mix with water. So it needs a taxi driver. It needs some protein carrier. And these protein carriers like albumin or transportin are made of amino acids and zinc. And then this vitamin E can be transported in the bloodstream and it can be stored in fat cells, for example. And it's important for the support and the production of immune cells, especially in the cell differentiation. So this means that the T cells in the thymus and the B cells in the bone marrow go through the training, the tough training, when they are learning all about the antigens, which are these pieces of the dead viruses and the pathogens that they met, and they are learning everything about them, and they are creating the antibodies, and they are actually putting the epitopes of these antigens on the top of them, so that in case in future they meet them, they can react quickly. So they are specialized, and vitamin A is involved in this. Vitamin A is actually also involved in the growth, and that's why I don't recommend to my clients to supplement vitamin A, especially if they, for example, have a family history of cancer, or if they are smokers and therefore their lungs might already have some cancerous cells, because that would help to grow the cancer. So what's better is to eat the food that has vitamin A and not the supplement in a large dose. Vitamin A is also involved in the collagen synthesis. So we know that we have collagen in the face, and you might have creams with vitamin A because they're helping the growth of the cells and the turnover, as well as strength of the collagen. That's what we, for example, need to protect ourselves from the cardiovascular disease or having the skin barrier intact. They are involved in the development of the lymphatic tissue and maintenance of the barrier, not only the skin, but also, for example, the lung tissue. And vitamin A is needed for these dendritic cells because it has this antiviral activity. Dendritic cells, they have these small dendrites, and they can actually put these finger-like projections into the tissue and scan the tissue, take some samples and see, is this dangerous part? Is it from some virus, or is it safe? So it's these spies that go and check the environment. So vitamin A in immunoglobulin A, this antibody, is in the skin, mucus, like in the nose, vagina, in the intestine, and even in the lymphatic system. And there is a difference between vitamin A, the retinoic acid, the fat-soluble vitamin, and beta-carotene. So beta-carotene is the pigment in vegetable. And we can use beta-carotene as a precursor. So it's also sometimes called provitamin A. But up to 45% of people don't convert carotenoids to vitamin A. And that's why it's wise to also use the animal products like butter, cheese, and eggs that are high in vitamin A. The highest in vitamin A is, for example, liver. Very difficult to eat, but it's so. Vitamin E is also important. So it's called tocopherol, and sometimes you see it, for example, in fish oil as well. And it's a potent antioxidant. That's why it's there, because the fat otherwise could be oxidized. So we know that oxygen, O2, can split into single molecules. And every time when we have a single molecule, singlet, it becomes a free radical that is trying to pair with something, and that can cause oxidative stress. So vitamin E is a potent antioxidant, and it's going to catch the free radicals and therefore block the damage of whatever cells in the body. And it's also anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory, anti-everything. It's a really powerful antioxidant. And it's concentrated in the adipose tissue, which means basically fat, because it is a fat-soluble vitamin that is stored in fat. It's also stored in the mitochondrial membrane. You know that every membrane, every cell membrane is a phospholipid bilayer. So it means it has 2 layers of the fat. And if we have enough vitamin E in this cell, it's protecting the membrane. And we know that mitochondria, and especially the mitochondrial DNA, is very prone to oxidation, because mitochondria is the energy powerhouse. It's the place where we have this electron transport chain, when the oxygens can be split into singlets. So that's why we want to have enough of the vitamin E to protect the oxidation. So it protects the lipid cell membrane from the damage, oxidative stress, and even the oxidation of the LDL. So because it's a fat-soluble vitamin, it's also going to be transported with cholesterol in these lipoproteins. LDL is a low-density lipoprotein. So if there was any damage happening, the vitamin E will be there to save us. Then, for example, it has also the synergistic effect with the vitamin C and A. So basically, if the vitamin C comes and wants to protect us and would normally get used in the process, vitamin E comes and saves it. So it's all these processes, they help each other. And then it also stimulates the B cells antibody production. So we know that the B cells are in a bone marrow, and they're involved in the humoral immunity, so basically protecting the blood. And it suppresses the anti-inflammatory genes, gene transcription. So it basically suppresses any genes that would cause the disease. So for example, this NF-kappa B, which is a key driver of the chronic inflammation. So where do we find vitamin E? So vitamin E is actually in nuts and seeds, mostly in avocado. So if you love avocado, then indulge in it, also broccoli and vegetable. The next one is vitamin D. And many of my clients are deficient in vitamin D. This is causing anxiety, depression, poor immune system, autoimmune disease, and cardiovascular disease as well. So get your blood test done. In France, it costs like €9, in Switzerland, €20. But every doctor would prescribe these blood tests. And then based on your results, you can decide how much you need to supplement. So vitamin E is basically potent neuroregulatory steroidal hormone. What that means? So potent, it's very strong. Neuroregulatory, so it's regulating the neurons and neurotransmitters. So we know that, for example, neurotransmitters like dopamine for the motivation, this reward center, what boosts you to do something, or serotonin that is responsible for your mood, for your behavior, for your sleep, or GABA that is a neurotransmitter that is helping you to fall asleep and calm down. Steroidal, it basically means that vitamin D is a steroidal hormone. It's made out of cholesterol. We need cholesterol, we need fat to produce the steroid hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and even cortisol. So 90% of the vitamin D is produced in the skin through the UVB. So the UVB needs to penetrate into the skin to start this process. And there is like other 2 steps of the activation in the liver and in the kidney. So if you are using sunscreen protection, you cannot create vitamin D. Also, you would need to expose your body every single day for 30 minutes to the sun without the sunscreen to make 20,000 international units. You might say, I eat fish, and fish has omega-3 and vitamin D, but 100 grams of farmed fish has only between 100 to 250 international units. The recommended dose is 400 international units every single day if you don't have deficiency. If you are deficient in this steroid hormone, you need to take significantly more, and this is then based on the advice of your doctor or the nutritional therapist. So don't dose your own, don't create your own dosage. You can also get vitamin D2 from shiitake mushrooms if they are exposed to the UVB, but very small amount. So why do we need vitamin D in context of the immune system? Because it regulates the proliferation of the cell turnover. So if you remember, when we were talking about vitamin A actually speeds up the growth and the cell turnover. That's why it's peeling the skin and making it stronger. But sometimes this is not what we want. So vitamin D can regulate it. So it says, in case you have, for example, psoriasis or dermatitis or any inflammation, and you have a much bigger skin turnover, and you can actually see this flaky, dry patches, which means that the system was too strong, vitamin D can regulate this and rebalance it. It's also responsible for the differentiation of the cells. So you know that the B cells in the bone marrow and T cells in the thymus are trained to recognize the antigens. So they're specialized for doing what they're supposed to do. And this drill is very hard, and only 2% of the cells pass this test. So vitamin D is helping there also to regulate it and make sure that the adaptive immune system is working properly. It's promoting immune tolerance, and this word tolerance is important, so that your body doesn't go crazy when it's under the stress and doesn't kill everything that's around you, but it makes wise decisions and will attack only the cells that are dangerous to you and not your own cells. So it's this tolerance. And vitamin D is also antibacterial and antimicrobial, these peptides that it creates. It also improves estrogen. And we know that estrogen is helping to produce mucins, and mucins are in the mucus. So for example, during perimenopause or menopause, when the estrogen levels go down, that's why women have dry vagina and they have dry nose and itchy skin and dry flaky skin. So vitamin D can again help. It's also supporting the insulin sensitivity. So we know that with the age and with exposure to the stress and sugar, our cells are not responding to the glucose from the food. And then the glucose is circulating in the bloodstream, actually damaging our cells. So vitamin D improves the sensitivity so that the glucose enters into the cell and can be in mitochondria turned into the energy, into the ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the currency, the money that can be then paid to other cells to work properly. It's also helping the calcium absorption from the gut and making our bones and teeth and hair and nails stronger. And it's also lowering cholesterol. So vitamin D is absolutely amazing. Now we are going to look at vitamin B12, cobalamin. And this is the only B vitamin that is not water soluble. And it is stored for 5 to 7 years in the liver. So it's found exclusively in animal products. So if you are vegan or vegetarian that is avoiding eggs and fish, then it's wise for you to supplement vitamin B12. You can also find it in fermented soy and seaweed, but this is only analog. So it's only similar structure, but it doesn't have the same function in our body. And vitamin B12, even when you eat it from animal products, needs to be activated in the stomach by intrinsic factor. So that will kind of chop one part and activate it. And if you, for example, suffer with H. pylori, or you have any inflammation in your stomach, you might not have this intrinsic factor. And the same with the age, if you are like 60 plus, you might not have the intrinsic factor, and then you will need to supplement it. So if you don't have enough B12, you might have impaired DNA synthesis and cell division. So we really need B12. Also, B12 is important for the red blood cells. So you can actually see that if you don't have B12, your red blood cells are large but empty. They are immature. If you have imbalance of the B12, you also cannot produce serotonin, the happy hormone that is responsible for your mood, and adrenaline. So you cannot react to the stressors. So that can also cause burnout and tiredness and fatigue and maybe fibromyalgia. And also B12 is needed for the integrity of the myelin sheath in your brain. And you know, if there are like holes, it's causing the multiple sclerosis. So this methylation and high homocysteine is also important for the clearing your body. So B12 in animal products, you can see them here. It's red meat, cheese, shrimps, salmon, milk, sardines as well. Yes, sardines my favorite, or the supplementation. Now we look at vitamin C. So vitamin C is actually everywhere, absolutely everywhere, even in frozen products. It's concentrated in our body in adrenals, brain, and immune cells. That's why we need to have sufficient amount. However, the deficiency is caused by the stress, because during stress, when our adrenal glands are producing cortisol, the stress hormone, vitamin C and zinc are actually involved in this process. So it's stealing all the vitamin C. The same smokers, because they are exposed to so much of the free radicals. So every puff is 4,000 toxins. So how much of the vitamin C you need? So, you know, the body is trying to protect it. And that's why smokers are depleted of the vitamin C. And the same with diabetes, because diabetes, it's an inflammation in the body, which means that the white blood cells have to go and clear this inflammation, and you can deplete the sources. Vitamin C is microbial, and it can actually help to eradicate the H. pylori in the stomach. It's also antiviral, so it stimulates the signaling of the proteins, these anti-inflammatory proteins, and helping you to fight against the viral replication in your own cells. It's needed for the synthesis of the serotonin. Serotonin, this happy hormone that in the night is turned into melatonin. Therefore, vitamin C will also help you to have a better sleep. But you don't want to supplement vitamin C just before you go to sleep. It's only during the day. Otherwise, you would be too energetic. And maybe you have seen it. It's in many facial creams, because it's also supporting the collagen synthesis. And it helps to convert cholesterol to bile acids. And we need bile acids to break down the fat cells into small micelles and either use them as a building blocks for our cells or eliminate them from the body. So vitamin C can even lower the triglycerides and use the fat as the energy. And it's involved in the metabolism of the drugs and carcinogens. So it's basically this antioxidant power that it has to eliminate it from the body. And it helps with the absorption of the iron. So if you, for example, don't eat meat, red meat, and therefore you don't have this heme version of the iron, and you are, for example, drinking beetroot juice, it's wise to mix it with, for example, lemon juice or orange juice, or eat it with broccoli, because then you absorb the iron in a better way. And it prevents the vulnerability of the oral mucosa. So we know that the oral mucosa, the mucus, is basically the first that meets the viruses. So we need to have a healthy mucus, and you definitely don't want to have any gum disease. So where do we find vitamin C? We really find it absolutely everywhere. Actually, garlic is very high in vitamin C, and even, for example, zinc, tomatoes, oranges, broccoli, red pepper, cabbage, kiwi, parsley, everything on the picture. So now we look at the omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA. They are involved and very important for the cell membrane fluidity. So what that basically means. So every cell in our body is like a ball, and it has the receptors on the top of every cell. So the cell, if it's too rigid, if you are eating only animal products, it's very hard and it cannot adapt and float. So we want to increase the fluidity so that the receptors are also able to recognize the hormones and absorb the vitamins and the minerals and open the gate when we want them to open the gate. Also, this EPA and DHA, then there are like hormones that can get, chop these eicosanoids, and then they are like hormone-like chemicals traveling in the blood, and they are anti-inflammatory. So they are then also producing resolvins and protectins. Omega-3 fatty acids are also helping to regulate the platelet aggregation. So you know that, for example, if you have high levels of LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, it's like this heavy ball, and it's damaging the arteries, and you might be bleeding in the arteries, but you don't see it. This is micro cuts. But your body is smart, and the platelets will come, and it's thrombocytes. It's called thrombocytes. They will come and they will build a protective layer, almost like a scab inside. So if you have too much of this can cause thrombus, and this thrombus, when it separates, it can travel and it can block your heart, it can block your blood-brain barrier and cause the strokes. And that's what you don't want. So omega-3 can regulate this so that you have sufficient amount of platelet, not too much and not too little. And it's also helping the arterial constriction. Yeah, so it can, because it's fluid, it can constrict when it's needed, and it can relax when it's needed because it's not rigid. And it also is involved in the tumor growth, right? So it's actually like decreasing the tumor. And appetite and weight control. Yeah, so omega-3 actually help to regulate the appetite and gene expression. So EPA, again, inhibits this factor that is anti-inflammatory. And so PUFA. So PUFA, it means polyunsaturated fatty acids. And that's basically from nuts and seeds. But it needs about 4 other steps with different enzymes and with all these minerals, magnesium, zinc, B6, B3, and to turn it into EPA. And not every time we have these enzymes. And that's why it's wise to get the blood tests done. You can do this blood test, which shows you the omega-3 and omega-6 ratio from Zinzino. I shared the link with you. You can get the free blood test. You do it at home, and then you know where you stand and how much of the omega-3 you actually need to use. Now we look at the lysine. So lysine is also very important. It's an amino acid. So we have 23 amino acids. Some of them are essential, which means that we need them. Our body doesn't know how to make them. And some of them are non-essential, which means that our body knows in a process how to create them from the other essential amino acids. So it's basically, lysine is like immune system booster. So it's important for the muscle protein repair. So when you are exercising and you have a sore muscles, lysine is supporting that. And it also blocks the viral spread by blocking the enzymes being secreted by the infected cell. So every time when the cell is infected, it basically passes the message to the next cell and next cell and next cell. And like this, the virus can spread absolutely everywhere. So for example, lysine, when I have herpes, this virus that is dormant in the ganglia, whenever you get it, when you get stressed, it gets triggered. So if I take lysine supplement, zinc and vitamin C, I stop this enzyme and therefore the replication of the virus. And so it works for every virus. So you can find lysine in food like chicken, beef, avocado, Parmesan, eggs, but you can also supplement it. The next one that is important for the immune system is zinc. So zinc is a mineral that you can find in food, for example, again, meat, fish, seafood, avocado, spinach. But if you need a therapeutic dose, it's better to supplement it. So zinc is, for example, very useful because it's antibacterial and it blocks this propione bacteria that is causing acne. That's why very often when you, for example, have a skin rash or acne, you put there a zinc paste. It also inhibits the viral replication. So again, if you have like any virus, herpes virus, and you can put this zinc paste on it. It's anti-inflammatory, it helps to heal the wounds, it supports the collagen synthesis, insulin synthesis, and we know that we need insulin to open the gates for the glucose so that the energy can be created. And in the thymus, the immune system organ, it helps with the cell proliferation and differentiation. So the turnover of the cells and the specialization of them. And it also interacts with the gene transcription. So it basically says what should be suppressed. It's also important for the pancreatic enzyme proteins for the digestion, because if we cannot digest the food in the stomach, it cannot be absorbed in the small intestine and we cannot have the building blocks. So zinc is very important. And alcohol, if you are drinking alcohol, it depletes zinc because there is an enzyme called dehydrogenase that is breaking down the alcohol, and therefore it's using the zinc in this process, right? It's building block, zinc is the building block of it. So just make sure that you don't drink alcohol. And zinc, maybe you know, it's very important for the fertility, reproduction, and sexual maturation. So I, for example, have a 14-year-old son, and now he started to have some acne due to the hormonal changes, and also his testosterone levels are increasing, and I therefore give him every single day 15 milligrams of zinc in a tablet, as well as in food. So let's also look at the herbs and the adaptogens that can help you to support the immune system. So you can use, for example, sage. So this is this herb that you can grow in the garden, but you can even buy dry one. So it's recommended to women in perimenopausal and menopausal state because it's also helping with the hot flushes, but it also has this ursolic acid that inhibits the viral and bacterial replication. So maybe you can drink it in the tea, like a tisane, herbal tea, or you can mix it into the food. Beta-glucans, you find them, for example, in oats. So if you soak 3 spoons of oats overnight, you basically kind of ferment them a little bit, then you can mix them in your pancakes, and they will give you these beta-glucans that support the innate and adaptive immunity because it has this mucus, so the mucus layer that we need for the immunoglobulins. elderberry or any berries, because they are high in these phytochemicals that are preventing the viral cell entry, right? Because we know that the virus needs to enter into the cell, and then it's using part of our cells to replicate. Garlic, so this allicin, when you crush the garlic, it actually takes 20 minutes before the allicin is activated. So wait before you eat it. And the garlic is also high in sulfur that we need for the detoxification of the liver. And it's also antimicrobial and antiviral. Curcumin, which is basically in curry, in turmeric, is this Indian spice. So large doses of curcumin inhibit this NFK factor, the one that is inflammatory, and so it reduces the inflammation. And I do recommend curcumin dose. And then, of course, ginger and rosemary, propolis, green tea, echinacea, ashwagandha, oregano, thyme, all these are powerful anti-inflammatory herbs. So I wonder, which one do you have at home? In the next video, we are going to look at how you can combine all this knowledge together and which food you can prepare.